The knock that changed everything. Urine lived alone at the edge of a forgotten colony. The air was always quiet. No visitors came. His house was old, made of metal and dust. He liked it that way. No noise, no people. Just him and silence. It was all he wanted after leaving the wars behind. But one cold night, that silence broke. It started with a soft knock. Just one, then another. Jaron froze. No one ever came here. Not neighbors, not traders, not even thieves. He waited. Maybe. It was wind. But then came the voice, low, weak, and shaking. I can cook. I can clean. I can be quiet. Jaron's hand moved toward the door, but he stopped himself. His instincts told him to ignore it. It could be a trap. Or something worse. He had seen strange things in the war, desperate people doing dangerous things. But that voice? It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like someone scared. Someone tired. Someone on the edge of breaking. He opened the door. A girl stood there. Not human. Thin. Dirty. She wore old, torn clothes. Her skin was smooth but pale, marked by scratches and bruises. Her eyes were large and glowing faintly in the dark, like soft lights filled with fear. Her hands stayed at her sides. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just looked down, waiting. Jaron looked around. No ship, no bag, no weapon, just her. Come in, he said quietly. She stepped inside without a word. He gave her a blanket and hot water. She sat on the floor near the She sat on the floor near the Fafan Mirafatu Favinmore cinema heater. Her shoulders shook a little, but she didn't make a sound. She didn't look at him. Just held the cup close to her lips like it was the only thing keeping her alive. He wanted to ask questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she here? But something told him not to push. So he just let her rest. Hours passed. The wind howled outside. She sat still. He made food. She didn't touch it until he moved away. Then she ate quickly, quietly, like someone who hadn't eaten in days. That night, he gave her the extra room. She bowed her head once, then disappeared behind the curtain. Jaron sat by the fire, staring at the door. Why did he let her in? He didn't have the answer. The next morning, he woke to a strange smell, warm, sweet, and spicy. His kitchen was full of steam. The girl was cooking, not just heating food. She was cooking from scratch, using ingredients he had almost forgotten he had. The counters were clean. The sink was empty. Even the old iron pan looked new. She still didn't speak. She served him a plate, then stepped back. Watched silently. The food tasted better than anything he had made in years. He looked up. Her eyes were on the floor. She waited for a reaction. It's good, he said. She didn't smile, but she nodded once. Then went back to cleaning. Jaron tried not to stare. She moved like someone trained. Every motion had purpose. But not like a robot. There was care in how she folded cloth. There was sadness in how she wiped the windows. Like every task kept her mind from breaking. He noticed something else too. She flinched when he walked too fast. When he dropped a spoon, she froze. When he raised his voice just slightly, her hands trembled. This wasn't just a runaway. This was someone who had suffered. That evening, he sat across from her and asked, "Do you have a name?" She didn't answer. He tried again. "Where are you from?" Still silence. Finally, she whispered, "I ran away from a merchant." That was all. No details, no tears. Just that single truth. Jaron didn't ask more. He remembered things from the war. Stories of how aliens were bought, used, broken. Some were made to serve in homes. Others were worse off. He looked at her and didn't see a threat. He saw a girl trying to survive, trying not to fall apart. The next few days she stayed, cooked, cleaned, never asked for anything. But Jaren could feel her fear like a shadow. In the room, she never went near the windows. She jumped at sudden sounds. Her eyes followed the sky like she expected a ship to come take her back. He wanted to tell her she was safe, but he didn't know if that was true, because deep down, he knew someone would come looking, and when they did, they wouldn't knock. But for now, she was here. And for the first time in years, Jaren didn't feel so alone. It all started with one whisper. And one open door. Asterisk. She woke before the sun. Jaren woke up early, but she was already moving. The house was quiet, but not empty. He found her sweeping near the front door, careful with every motion, like she didn't want to disturb even the dust. She didn't look at him, didn't say anything, just continued cleaning like it was her purpose. The kitchen smelled different again, not like war rations or rehydrated meals. She had somehow taken his old supplies, things he never used, and made a warm breakfast, soft bread, spiced broth, something sweet he couldn't name. She placed the food in front of him, stepped back, and waited. Her face was calm, but her eyes watched him closely, like his opinion meant everything. He took a bite, nodded once, and said, "Thank you." She turned and walked away before he could say more. The day passed quietly. She worked from one corner to the next. She never stopped moving, like if she rested, she might disappear. Jaren noticed the way her hands moved. Fast, but gentle. She didn't clean to impress. She cleaned to survive. Each movement told a story he didn't understand yet. He tried talking again, asked her if she was hungry, asked her if she needed clothes. She only gave short nods or shook her head. No voice, no smile. Still, something was changing, slowly. She didn't flinch as much now when he walked behind her. She stayed closer to the windows when the sky was quiet. She didn't hide from the light. That night, she sat by the heater again, wrapped in the bum. Same blanket. Jaren sat across the room. He watched the fire flicker and thought about how strange the house felt now. Not bad, just different, warmer, alive. Why me? He finally asked. She looked up. Her voice was so soft it almost disappeared in the hum of the heater. "You opened the door," she said. Jaren nodded slowly. "But why knock here? There are others, cities, safer places." She stared into the fire for a long time before whispering, "They don't open." Jaren didn't ask more. He didn't need to. He had seen what fear could do. He had seen people close their doors to the weak, the strange, the desperate. He had done it himself before. Maybe this time he opened it because he was tired. Or maybe because he saw something in her that reminded him of someone long gone. The next morning, she spoke again. Just one sentence. "I ran from the merchant base near Sector 9. Jaren froze. Sector 9 was a lawless area. No protection. No patrols. If she escaped from there, she was lucky to still breathe. "Were you sold?" he asked. She nodded. "More than once." He didn't press her. She said no more. But the way she said it, flat and empty, told him everything. After that, she started doing more. She planted herbs outside the house, fixed broken things in the kitchen, repaired a cracked water pipe without being asked. He found her stitching old curtains, humming a strange tune under her breath. She was changing. Still quiet, still cautious, but less like a ghost and more like a person. But Jaren knew peace didn't last. One afternoon, he found tracks near the boundary of his property. Not hers, not his. Something else. Heavy boots. No markings, no trail leading in. Just standing there. Like someone wanted to be seen. He checked his old scanners. They were off, disabled from years of disuse. He turned them back on. The silence of his land wasn't as safe as it used to be. He didn't tell her. Not yet. That night, while eating dinner, she said something unexpected. "I can cook. I can clean, but I can also disappear." Joran looked at her. "You planning to run again?" She shook her head. "Only if you tell me to." He leaned back in his chair. "I didn't ask you to stay, but I didn't ask you to leave either." She nodded slowly, then said something even more strange. "If I stay, I can do more. I know things, not just housework. I learned other things too." Joran didn't know what she meant, but her voice had a new edge, like she wasn't just afraid anymore. She was preparing. He wondered then what kind of life she had before she reached his door, and he started to realize that this girl wasn't just hiding from danger. She was hiding from what she used to be, and someone out there might still want her back, not to help her, but to use her. The house felt quiet again that night, but not peaceful, because now Joran wasn't just sharing a home. He was sharing a target. Asterisk eyes in the dark. Wind had shifted. Joran noticed it first through the silence, not in the sound of the breeze, but in how the birds stopped singing. Near the edge of the field, it wasn't much, just a tension in the air. But it made his instincts wake up like they used to on patrols before ambushes. He didn't mention it to her. She was finally moving with less fear, finally breathing like someone who belonged, but he started checking the outside perimeter again. The motion alarms he once disabled, he quietly reactivated. He dusted off his old rifle and cleaned it slow, careful not to let her see. Then, one morning, he found it. A boot print, large, deep, too fresh to be his, too clean to be hers. Someone had walked right up to the side of his land and turned back. No broken fence, no forced entry. Just that silent message, "We see you." He didn't panic. Not yet. He just watched more carefully after that. Set up a mirror on the hill. Checked the sky at night. Then, 3 days later, he noticed something even more disturbing. A small drone, no bigger than his fist, half buried under the tool shed. Damaged. Fried from static, maybe. But its lens was still intact, pointing straight toward the house. He confronted her that evening. Not with anger, just truth. "Someone's been here. Might be watching. Know anyone who would track you?" She went still, the way a hunted animal freezes when it hears a twig snap. "Yes," she whispered, "but they don't use drones. They use silence. They wait." She didn't look afraid. She looked like someone remembering something dark, something worse than machines. Joran pushed for more. She told him the truth in broken pieces. The merchant she escaped from wasn't just a trader. He was a collector of rare species, of rare hybrids. She wasn't just another runaway. She was special, illegal, valuable. Her kind was supposed to be extinct after the last purge. But she survived. Barely. He kept her hidden for years. Used her for cooking, cleaning, and when guests arrived. For showing off, she was trained to serve, to smile, to be silent. But one day she stopped smiling, stopped speaking. And when the opportunity came, when he left the cage unsealed, she ran. "He won't send machines," she repeated softly. "He'll send men." Joran knew what that meant. Mercenaries, hunters, people paid not just to retrieve, but to erase anyone who helped. She wanted to leave again. Said it would be safer. Said she didn't want him to suffer for opening that door. He didn't let her. Instead, he fortified the house. Steel over windows. Power cells recharged. Old traps reset. She helped. Not with fear, but with calm. She didn't shake anymore when tools clanged. She moved like she remembered war, like she had been around it before. She crafted clever little things, metal noise, triggers, smoke bursts, even a portable flare. Joran watched, impressed. She was no ordinary servant. She was something else. Something trained. Or maybe just naturally smart after surviving for so long. That night, Jaren couldn't sleep. The sky outside was clear, but he saw movement on the ridge. Not lights. Just shadows that didn't belong. And then came the mark. The next morning. Carved into the metal siding of the front wall were 4 words. Return what is ours, no footprints. No alarms triggered Dot, just that quiet warning. She saw it before he could hide it. But she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She went inside, took off the soft clothes he gave her, and pulled on her old worn uniform, what little she had left from before. I won't run again, she said. I'd rather burn than go back. Jaren stood beside her. His old bones ached, but his heart was steady. Then we make them regret knocking. The house wasn't just a home anymore. It was about to become a battlefield. And the girl who once whispered, "I can be quiet," had a new look in her eyes, a fire that would not be silenced. Asterisk the truth in her blood. The message on the wall changed everything. Jaren didn't speak of it again. He didn't have to. The house was no longer quiet. It was alert. The stillness of peace had been replaced with the stillness of waiting. She felt it too. But instead of folding into fear like before, she moved with purpose. She no longer hid in corners, no longer flinched at shadows. She sat at the center of the room, tools in her lap, eyes steady. That day, she made something strange, metal folded into small discs, lines of energy stored inside. When Jaren asked what it was, she only said, "Reminders." He didn't push her. But later that night, he found her sitting on the roof, staring up at the stars. Her voice was quiet when he joined her, but the words that came next changed everything. "You should know the full truth," she said. "Not just what I've done, but what I am." Jaren waited. "I'm not just an escaped servant." "Not just?" "Some alien girl." She paused. "I was made." That word cut the air in half. My parents were different species. They weren't supposed to have a child. It was forbidden. Hybrid birth is dangerous, unstable, they say. So the empires erased those like me, called us accidents, mutations. But I lived. Barely. She turned her head toward him. They don't just want me back because I'm theirs. They want me back because I proved their law is broken. My blood, it's a threat. Jaren said nothing. The war had shown him many strange things, creatures built in labs, soldiers born in tubes. But this was different. She was real, breathing, feeling. Hunted not because she was dangerous, but because she was living proof of something they feared. That love between enemies had created something stronger. She looked away. He bought me when I was small. I don't know how he found me. But he trained me like a pet, not a person. And when guests came, he would make me recite things, smile, bow, pretend I didn't understand what they said. Her hands tightened into fists, but I understood everything. Jaren watched her in silence. The fire inside her was clearer now, not anger, but a hunger to exist without chains, to breathe without fear. Do you know what it feels like to be erased while still alive? She asked, her voice barely above the wind. To exist, but only if you hide what you are? He did, in his own way. The war had erased many parts of him too. She stood up slowly. I can fix things. I can fight. I can lead. But all they ever wanted from me was silence. Jaren stood too. He wasn't young anymore, and his body reminded him of that daily. But he still had strength. And now he had purpose again. You're not property, he said. You're not an accident. And you're not alone. The next morning she moved differently. No more waiting. She turned the storage shed into a workshop, took apart old machines, rewired defense grids, modified heat signatures to confuse trackers. But Jaren noticed something else, something deeper. As she worked, she began to hum again, not like before. when it was to soothe her fear, but this time it was like she remembered who she was meant to be. She even laughed once when a machine sparked and Jaren jumped. That night, they sat by the fire again. She shared food she had made from both his culture and hers, a strange mix, but somehow perfect. He asked if she had a name. She hesitated, then whispered, Nava. It was the first time she had said it, the first time she claimed it. Jaren nodded. Then they'll learn it too. But far beyond the hills, engines were roaring. Nava had stopped running, but her enemies hadn't stopped hunting, and they were coming faster than either of them. Expected. When fire fell from the sky, the silence broke with thunder, not from the weather, but from above. Jaren was outside checking the sensor wires when he heard it. A low hum, too smooth for nature, too sharp to be wind. He turned his head just in time to see the sky split open. A black dropship, no lights, no markings, ripped through the clouds and circled once before disappearing behind the far ridge. They had found her. Inside, Nava was already packing supplies, not to flee, but to fight. She handed Jaren an old transmitter. She rebuilt herself. Short range only, she said, but enough for traps. Her hands didn't shake anymore. Her eyes were clear. The girl who once whispered at his door was gone. Now, she was steel. Jaren activated the perimeter defenses while Nava moved like she was born for war. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't trained. But her instincts were too sharp, too precise. To be natural. She set up electric snares, rewired signal jammers, and planted decoy heat pods around the cabin. Every time Jaren tried to help, she moved faster. They'll try to break in quietly, she said. They think I'm still weak. But they had no idea how wrong they were. That night, the sky burned again, this time closer. A second ship, sleeker and faster, landed beyond the hills. The air shimmered with silent footsteps. Jaren felt it in his bones. They're here, he said. Then came the first attack. It wasn't loud. It was almost beautiful, lasers cutting across the trees, scanning shadows, sweeping the terrain like ghosts hunting light. But Nava was ready. Her traps snapped one after another, a shock burst here, a flash mine there. The forest lit up in blinding bursts. Screams followed, but they kept coming. Jaren grabbed his rifle, an old earth-made beast of metal and memory. He fired once, then again, and watched two shadows fall. Nava didn't stop. She used her small frame to move through smoke and sound, luring enemies into confusion. At one point, a mercenary grabbed her from behind. He didn't live long enough to finish a sentence. Jaren saw it, how fast she moved. How clean. She didn't enjoy it, but she didn't hesitate either. He realized something dark but true. She had killed before, and she had learned to live with it. By midnight, the cabin was surrounded. Fire in the tree line, smoke crawling through the grass. The enemy used silence as their weapon, but so did Nava. She moved without noise, without breath. She fought not like a warrior, but like a shadow. Jaren was pinned near the fence line when a drone hovered over him. Just as it charged, Nava appeared out of nowhere through a disk she made days ago. The drone sparked, dropped, and exploded. She pulled him up with strength far beyond what he expected. You okay? She asked, voice calm. He nodded. You could have run. She shook her head. And leave the only person who didn't treat me like a thing? Then, suddenly, everything went still. The attackers began retreating, not running in fear, but falling back like they had seen something they didn't understand. Jaren didn't see it until he looked behind. Nava. Her arm was glowing faint blue veins under her skin pulsing with light. Her body, hybrid, unnatural, hunted, was reacting to the adrenaline, to the stress. She was changing, becoming something not entirely alien or human. Something more. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. By dawn, the attackers were gone. The dropships vanished into the clouds. Jaren, and Nava stood in the smoking yard, surrounded by silence again. But it was a different kind now. It was the silence after fire. The silence that follows when you survive what was meant to destroy you. He looked at her, eyes full of questions, but she just whispered, "Now they know I'm not alone." She wasn't just free. She was feared. And for the first time, they had made a mistake. And for the first time, they had made a mistake. They came to take her back, but she had something now she never had before. Reason to stay and a place to fight for. The voice they tried to silence. The cabin still smelled of smoke, but life had returned to it. The walls were scorched, the land was scarred, and yet inside there was warmth. Not from the fire, but from something deeper, hope, perhaps, or the strange peace that follows survival. Nava didn't rest. She repaired what was broken. She cleared the traps and rebuilt the shattered solar panels. Her hands stayed busy, but her eyes were different now. They no longer darted toward the door. They no longer expected chains. Jaren saw the change too. She didn't ask for orders. She gave them. Outcasts began to arrive slowly at first. A limping ex-miner. A half-blind alien girl with burned scars. A quiet boy with a stolen datapad full of secrets. They came with nothing but fear and left with food, shelter, and a place to breathe. Nava greeted each one with the same words. No questions, no chains, just help rebuild. She became something unexpected, something she never believed she could be. A leader. But Jaren noticed something even more powerful. She had started speaking more. Not just answers, but stories, lessons, jokes, things she once buried deep. Her voice, soft, steady, was a sound no one could ignore. One night, around a fire outside the house, she finally spoke her full name. "My name is Nava Eleth, daughter of what should not exist. And I'm not hiding anymore." There was no silence after that. Only applause. And tears from those who once thought they were alone. One of the newcomers, an old engineer with twitchy hands, offered to install a long-range beacon for emergencies. But Nava declined. "No more running," she said. "If they come again, they'll find us standing." Word spread across the outer sectors. Whispers of a strange place where the TT team whispers of a strange place where the defender hunted found safety. Where a hybrid girl who once whispered for permission now stood without fear. No one could believe it. But more kept arriving. Still, peace was never simple. A sleek envoy ship landed at the far field one afternoon. No guns. No soldiers. Just two high-ranking officials from the Unified Systems Council. They wore soft colors and carried smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They asked to speak with the girl. Nava stood before them, taller now, prouder. They offered her a deal: protection, travel rights, even a seat on their reform panel. "All you have to do," one said, "is leave this place. Return to a proper center. Be visible. Controlled." Nava listened quietly, then shook her head. "I wasn't made to live behind glass." They pushed harder, used threats, hinted at what might come if she stayed rogue. That's when Jaren stepped forward. His voice was quiet but firm. "You saw what happened to the last ones who came with chains. Do you really want to test us again?" The officials left in silence. They understood the message. Nava was no longer alone. She was no longer weak, and she was no longer theirs. That night, under the stars, she sat beside Jaren and said, "Do you ever regret opening the door?" He smiled. "Only that I waited so long." She looked up, her eyes full of starlight. "I used to dream of being invisible. Now I dream of being remembered." He nodded. "And you will be. Not because of what you are, but because of what you chose." She didn't respond right away. But then, For the first time, she laughed free and real. Nava Elif, once a whisper, had become a voice, and the galaxy was finally listening. Asterisk, the whisper that changed a world. The cabin that once stood alone now felt like the heart of something greater. Gardens stretched across the old war-torn soil, planted by many hands, some human, some not. Children ran through the fields. Laughter echoed against the mountains where silence once ruled. The land, once forgotten, had found purpose. And at the center of it all was Nava. She no longer moved like someone avoiding notice. She walked with quiet strength, head high, shoulders firm. The girl who once whispered to be let inside was now the reason others stepped outside. Visitors came now, not enemies, but historians, rebels, teachers, and truth-seekers. They didn't come to study her. They came to listen, because her story had become more than survival. It had become legend. Jaran, now older, watched it all. From his porch. He didn't speak much these days. He didn't need to. Everything that mattered stood just a few steps away. He sometimes found himself smiling at the way things turned out. She was supposed to be a slave, a tool, a secret to be erased. Now, she was a symbol. One afternoon, a child asked Nava why she came to this place, why she knocked on Jaren's door. She knelt beside him, brushed his messy hair back, and said softly, "Because I believed, even after everything, that someone still had room for me." That night, the wind returned gentle, soft, but no longer cold. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if watching. A message arrived days later, a formal one. The new galactic charter had been signed. One of its core clauses had been named after her, the Nava Accord. No voice born of life shall be silenced. Jaran read it once, then looked over at Nava. She was tending the fire, humming again. The tune had changed, it was lighter. Now full of life. She caught him staring. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Just thinking how strange life is." One whisper. "And here we are." She smiled, that soft, rare smile that had once been hidden behind fear. "You opened your door," she said. "You knocked first," he replied. And in that moment, they both understood something simple but powerful. A quiet voice had rewritten their futures. Not with power, not with force, but with hope. And from that hope, a home was built, and a world was changed.